Hello, my friend. This is Joseph Ponnu, and it's my absolute delight and pleasure to present to you today this wonderful personality who has authored several books which have sold over 1 million copies. And one particular book, about which we'll talk more in detail as we go along, a book titled The Go Giver. What an amazing title, isn't it? The Go Giver. That book alone has sold over 500,000 copies all over the world, and it has been translated into more than 21 languages. All right. Now, can a subtle shift in your focus make that huge a difference in your business and in your income? Absolutely yes, says a guest speaker. So I urge you to put away all distractions, take notes, and listen very carefully to what our guest today has to say, Mr. Bob Burg. Bob, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this talk show, and I really appreciate your taking time to join and share your thoughts and vision with our viewers and listeners.
Thank you, Joseph. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you.
Wonderful. This magazine gets read in 82 countries, and we have several thousand people downloading it for every issue. And it's, the very fact that I'm also very personally happy about this particular interview is that, this magazine is also about giving. It's also about adding value, so it's so
Absolutely.
congruent. It's so congruent with what we want to do about giving back to the society. So once again, welcome, and we look forward to really having some wonderful time with you today.
Thank you so much.
So Bob, before we proceed, why don't you share a little bit about yourself, your background, what are the other things that you do? I know, for example, that you are an animal lover, right? So perhaps
That I
a little
am.
bit on your background, your professional stuff, your personal things, whatever you would like us to know.
Well, I began as a broadcaster, actually, Joseph, in radio and then on TV. I was not particularly good at that, so I shifted into sales. And I wasn't very good at that because I didn't know anything about sales. So I started to learn. I began to read books. The training at the company where I was at was very negligible, so I wasn't going to get training there. But fortunately, there are always books we can read. And back then, of course, there were tapes, the cassette tape programs. Now it's a whole different thing. But so I studied Tom Hopkins and Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and all the greats at the time, and I've always, and I learned and I grew. And I think it's like anything else, that when you have a methodology, a way of doing something that we can learn from others, we could say it's a system, right? What is a system? It's simply the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. In other words, the key is predictability. When it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, you know all you need to do is A and do A and do A and keep doing it consistently, and eventually you'll get the desired result of B. And so from there, my sales really went well, and I became sales manager of another company and started teaching others what was working for me. And it sort of morphed into a speaking business where I've been doing this now for many years, and it's been a lot of fun. And yes, I'm an animal. I always call myself an unashamed animal fanatic, because I really love animals and just hate it when they're mistreated and abandoned, and far too many of them are.
Wow. Yeah, looking behind you, I can of course see, some of the very many books that you have read, of course,
It's a
and
small part of my library in my home.
and yes, when I heard you say that you've been at speaking, I just remember that indeed I've heard that you've shared a lot of stages with great personality, including one of the past presidents of America, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yes, that was just at some of the there were these events called the Get Motivated seminars where it was all sorts of speakers. You had partly celebrity speakers and others were the lower known, lesser known, speakers like myself.
Who would give the real
Uh,
value there?
huh?
Who would give the real value there?
Well, I mean, I think it's two different things because I think people came to see the
Yes,
celebrities,
yes.
but they got how-to information, business building information from the business speakers there. So I think it worked out for everyone, but those were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There'd be 15, 20, 25,000 people in a stadium, and those were a lot of fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. I see that you are an author, you're a speaker, but what has been in the back of my mind is how did the thought of writing this particular book, The Go Giver, come about? What incited you, drove you to take on this topic and go ahead and write this particular book, The Go Giver?
Yeah, that's a great question. Years ago, my first book that really kind of hit it successfully was called Endless Referrals: Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. And it was, and for years, whenever I spoke at network marketing, direct sales conferences, this was the topic: how to never again run out of new prospects,
Absolutely.
A-list, high quality prospects for your business, right? So it was a how-to type of book, which helped people who didn't feel comfortable with the prospecting process be able to develop the, what I call the know you, like you, trust you relationships in a way that there was no pressure on them. There was no pressure on the prospect. And that was, it was a very successful book. But I always loved reading business parables through the years. Love them. Short stories that made a connection with people, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take the basic idea of endless referrals and turn that into a business parable?
Hmm.
And when you think about it, how do you develop the know, like, and trust relationships? You're always giving value to others. And I
Absolutely.
thought of the book, The Go Giver, which was kind of a playoff on Go Getter, but really we love go getters too, because go getters take action. We want people to be go-getters, people to take action, and go-givers, people who are focused on providing value to others. So we always say, be a go-getter and a go-giver, just don't be a go-taker, because the go-taker is a type that they're focused only on themselves. And so I kind of got the storyline down just a little bit, came up with some characters, not anything much. But I realized very quickly that while I can write a how-to book pretty well, there's a big difference between that and a work of fiction, which The Go-Giver would be. And I knew it was not outside my comfort zone, though it was, but that's not a big deal. But as John Maxwell would later say, it was outside my strength zone.
Hmm.
And I knew that I could not do it the kind of justice that it should have, because I knew it could be a special book. So fortunately, I had gotten to know John David Mann as editor-in-chief of a magazine that I used to write for. And John was a fantastic editor, but he was also in the niche. He was known as a great author, and I knew he was. And he was such a great guy. And I just asked, I said, would you care to be the really the lead writer and the storyteller on this? And he was very busy even at the time, but he and his wife, well, his fiance at the time, Anna, now his wife, they were in Tampa, across the state from me, visiting her mom. So they drove over 4 hours across state, and we had dinner one night and talked for about 3 hours on what we thought about what we wanted the book to be about, the direction of the book, how we wanted to market it, where we wanted to go with it. And a few weeks later, he came back and said, or he called me on the phone and said, yeah, I think we've got something here. Let's do this. And that's how it started.
Awesome, awesome. That's
Yeah.
a great one. That's a great one. I've had the privilege of going through your book, but for the benefit of our audience, would you please elaborate on the 5 laws that you speak about in
Sure.
the book?
Sure. It begins with a premise, and that is that shifting one's focus, and this is really the key, shifting one's focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this case, Joseph, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing value to others, understanding that not only is that a nice way to live life, it's a very financially profitable way to do business as well. And the 5 laws go off of that basic foundation. The 5 laws are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity.
Hmm. Right.
And I can do an explanation of those if you'd like, whatever you'd like to do.
Sure. If you could give a brief elaboration on that,
Sure.
please.
Well, the first one says that we always want to provide more in value or use value than what we take in payment. Now, That's not to be confused with not making a profit. No, you make a wonderful profit, but it's because the experience that you provide this person is immense. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. If you have a certain product, and let's just talk in terms of a retail product as a consumer, not a business builder, but a consumer, and whatever it happens to be, whether it's about health or wealth or whatever it is, or this, it doesn't matter. They're paying you for this product, but this product's so fantastic that it's worth much more to them than what they're paying.
Absolutely.
Plus, you've given them time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, the entire buying experience, as well as the intrinsic value of the product. You've given them more in value than what you've taken in payment, but of course, you also made a very healthy profit as well.
Absolutely.
The key is that the focus cannot be on making the sale and getting the check. The focus must be on providing them value. This is why we say, John and I say, that money is simply an echo of value. The value comes first. The money that you receive is simply a very natural and direct result of the value you've provided. Now, law number 2 takes it a step further. Law number 2 is the law of compensation. This says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number 1 says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number 2 tells us that the more people whose lives you touch with the exceptional value you provide, the more money with which you'll be rewarded. Now, in a direct selling model, this works so wonderfully well because not only do you have people whose lives you're adding value to as direct consumers, but you bring people into the business who want to build the business. And these people have their own consumers and other people they bring into the business, and they have their own consumers. And what happens is directly and indirectly, you're touching the lives of, tens of people, of hundreds of people, of thousands of people, of tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people who directly or indirectly, you get to touch their lives. And as you do, you receive more and more income. Law number 3 is the law of influence, and this says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Now, this sounds counterproductive, yet every great leader right? This is how every great influencer, the top earners, this is how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. They're always looking for ways to bring value to others. Now, let me qualify this because this can easily be misunderstood, and it's important that it not be. When we say place other people's interests first, we certainly don't mean you should ever be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Absolutely not at all. It's simply that as Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of the mentors, the golden rule of business goes back to what we said earlier, right? All things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Well, you know what? There's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way of eliciting those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from an I focus or me focus to an other focus. Or as Sam, one of the mentors of the story, told Joe, making your win about the other's win. And when people in your organization, when people in your community, when they know this is your way of operating, right? You are attracting great people, great things into your life.
Absolutely.
Now, law number 4 is the law of authenticity. And this simply says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. Yeah. Be real. Be real. In the story, Deborah Davenport shares a lesson she learned early in her career that all the skills in the world, sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are indeed all very important, they're all for naught if you don't come at it from your true self. But when you do, when you, as we like to say, show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after, people feel good about you. They feel comfortable with you. They know you. They love you. They trust you. They feel safe with you. So showing up authentically is so important. And to do this, we need to really understand the great value we bring to the table. And so that's why it's important to get with your mentors and discuss with them your strengths and even your weaknesses. And we need to sometimes fix up our weaknesses, but we lead with our strengths. And then law number 5 is the law of receptivity. And this says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving.
Wow.
Right? We breathe out, but we also have to breathe in.
Right, right.
So we breathe out, which is giving, we breathe in, which is receiving. Now, unfortunately, there are so many messages of lack and negative messages about money in the world that a person can really get it inside their head on an unconscious level that money's a bad thing and I'm not worthy of this, and if I'm making a lot of money, I'm a bad person. No, absolutely not. We need to understand that giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work together in tandem. The question is not, right, the question is not, am I a giver or a receiver? It's, I am a giver and a receiver. The key is the focus, though, which we spoke about earlier. You focus on the giving of value. You focus on the giving, and you allow the receiving.
Awesome. Bob, thank you so much. That was indeed so very informative and
Thank you.
eye-opening, I would say. But a question that often comes about when, even I get a chance to speak to the majority of the people who are in the industry, who obviously are the people who have probably started earlier, or they've not had much success yet, or they have not yet built their name, their influence, their team, and so on. They're still in the learning curve. Maybe they themselves are going to coaches and mentors and so on. So at this stage, how does or what kind of value would a junior person, somebody who's just starting off, or somebody who cannot claim having made a lot of money, so what kind of value can they give? How does that work in these cases?
Well, remember, you can always share knowledge that you have. You can always connect other people. When you first meet someone, okay, let's say you meet someone new, and you don't know if this person will ever be a prospect or not, but you're in a conversation with a person. Take the focus off yourself and give them time, give them attention. Take it off you, make it about them. Ask them what they do for a living, how they got started in their business. What do you enjoy most about your business? And let's say this person sells copying machines, this other person. You might say, I always love connecting good people with other good people. How can I know if someone I'm speaking with would be a good prospect for you?
For you. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
and
a
so
very powerful message. That's a very powerful message. Awesome. I get you.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes when, networkers or the people in the direct selling industry meet somebody else, the focus is on selling their product, which has to absolutely move on. And, I'm so very
And it
happy
puts
that you
pressure on yourself, right? And that's what knocks people out of the business. They think they have to go hitting everybody up on their product or service or opportunity. No, instead, make it about the other person. Form a relationship, form a friendship, be of value to them, and you'll be amazed at how quickly they respond to you.
Actually, I must mention that over the years, in my own trainings and as well as the trainings that I've gone through or heard other people saying, yes, we do talk about not focusing on yourself, focusing on the other person, but oftentimes we ourselves focus about the pain areas of the other person. But like you said, we could also be taking an approach where we voluntarily say, how can I help you improve your own existing business? Referring you customers for your business, for example. I think that would totally throw the person in front of you off their feet, because that's the least they would have expected.
Well, I like to even ask as a question after you've met the person and ask them how they got started, is to say something like, what do you enjoy most about what you do?
Right.
This is the exact opposite. Right. Because now this person's relaxed. They don't feel like they're being, attacked. Right? It's just you're asking them a nice, what I call a feel-good question. It simply causes this person to feel good about themselves, about you, about the conversation. Yes. And they're much more likely to relax and be open to wanting to get to know you better when you help them feel good about themselves. Now, Is there ever a time to talk about, paying? Well, when you're doing a presentation eventually, and you need to be able to tactfully help them see where they're going to be much better off by either having your product or service or building the business or whatever it is that you're doing, if that's legitimate, if that's the case. But right when you first meet someone,
No.
no, don't get right into pain, because you're going to turn that person off most likely.
Right, right. So, continuing on the same lines of the question, giving value is one thing, and becoming or putting up your position or status as an influencer, which is one of the things that you mentioned. How does this work with, again, people who are still groping their way through the industry?
Well, remember, as you start building relationships with people and you build that know, like, and trust relationship, and I have a system for doing that as well, as far as how to follow up, how to follow through with people, always in a way
Mhm.
that it's not pressury. It's always in a way that they enjoy. But there's that time when you invite yourself to talk with them, whether it's about the business itself or even just the products or services.
Mhm.
And you do that. And you know what? Most people are still going to say no. Some are going to say yes. Some are going to say yes and then quit. Others are going to say yes and they're going to be great customers and nothing else. Some will be business builders. Some will be great customers and referral sources. And you do it that way, little by little. But what you really want to do, I think, and there's much more now of I think, an agreement that for a long lasting business, it was always, well, do you sell the opportunity or do you sell the product? And of course, it
Right.
was always, it depends on who the prospect is. But, they said, well, lead with the opportunity. If they don't want the opportunity, go with the product. But I think now a lot of people, when they get into the business, especially because they love the product, it's easier for them to lead with the product because they believe so much in the
Yes.
product. Okay.
They
So
themselves become an
once you,
advocate.
yeah. So once you have someone who's a really happy customer, now you can start to ask for referrals. So what I like to ask, what I call start with the marketing bridge, which just creates a safe place to ask for referrals. So you might say, Anne, who's your customer, Anne, I'm in the process of expanding my referral business, and I find it's helpful to partner with my happy customers such as you. Can we
Mhm.
take a few quick minutes and run past the names of some other people I might also be able to help?
Mm.
Now, there's no pressure in that.
Sure.
You have a lot of posture when you say it. I'm in the process of expanding my referral business. I find it's helpful to partner, and partner's a powerful word because you're having her part of what you're doing. Can we take a few quick minutes? So you're letting her know it's not going to take up a lot of time to run past the names of some other people I might, and you say might because you want to communicate to her that she never has to worry about you coming on too strong or try, in case that person you're saying not everybody's going to be, I might be able to help them, might not, who I might be able to help. And it needs to be very genuine. And she says, yes. Yeah. So now you want to ask for referrals. But rather than say, who do you know or do you know anyone who? Because what happens is there's too many people they know. They
Hmm.
can't think of anyone. And they say, well, I can't think of anybody right now, but when I do, I'll let you know. And they never do let you know, right?
Yeah.
So you want to take Tom Hopkins' wise advice from How to Master the Art of Selling,
Hmm.
where he says that we should funnel down people's worlds into small groups of people they can see.
Hmm.
So if you know that Anne loves golf, you might ask her who she golfs with
Hmm.
usually, and she says, "Well, Dr. Mary Ruart, Sheila Brown, Michael Cloud, the four of us are great golfing buddies." And so now she's given you the names of three people that she can think of. So now you might say, would Sheila or Mary or Michael, do you feel any of them would be open to boom? And so maybe yes, maybe no, maybe one of them, two of them, all three, who knows? Now going, she's also a member of her business and professional women's group that meets monthly. Now you don't say, is there anyone in your group, because it's, again, it could be too big, but you could say, is there anyone within that group you're particularly good friends with or that you sit next to every time or you serve on a committee with? And so you're asking these groups of questions, small groups, which sets her up to win. It creates an environment of victory for her instead of her saying, oh, I can't think of anyone.
Right.
And so these people remind her of other people, and so now you start to prospect those people. But now it's so much easier because with referrals, what happens? It's easier to set the appointment because you're going in on borrowed influence. Price is less of an issue, so you can sell on value. It's easier to complete the transaction because of borrowed trust, or what we call vicarious experience. And these people are already of the mindset that you operate from referral, since that's how they met you. So they're much more likely to refer you when asked. And you start to build little by little by little, but very consistently, approaching it as a business. It's not going to happen automatically and right away, but that you're going to work at like any other business. And as you do that and you start to grow, now you're creating a network of A-list, high quality people. You never again have to ask yourself that age-old question, who do I talk to next? Now that my original list of names has run out, because you've always got more people to talk to. So you really don't care if someone's not interested, because it really doesn't matter. You'd prefer they be interested, and if they are, great. But you know that if they say no, you can say next. Not out loud, but you say next to yourself, and you very graciously move on to the next person, because you always have referrals to speak with. And that's how you build it.
Really, I'm really loving this, Bob. Thank you so
Oh,
much,
thank you.
because you've been giving, the very specific scripts that people who are watching this can pick up and use it to their benefit.
Joseph, I've got to tell you. Oh, go ahead. Excuse me. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say the biggest thing I hear whenever I speak at a network marketing or direct sales convention is the people who had so much potential to build the business who quit. Why? It's not because they heard a few no's. That's what we think it is, but that's what it seems like, but that's not the reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's that they thought they were the only people who heard those no's,
Wow.
because they see all the people walking across stage and they think it just happened for them.
Mm.
So it's not the no's that drive potentially great leaders out of the business builders out of the business. It's thinking they're the only ones who hear the word no. If they came into it really understanding on a deep level that they were going to hear a lot of no's, but that they also knew there was a methodology to put so many people in front of them that it didn't matter, because they never had to run out of new people, they'd be fine. Then they'd hear a no, they'd be a little disappointed, and they'd say, okay, next.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. That's great advice. That's great advice. Absolutely. I found a very interesting thing that you mentioned in your book, and that is that the go-giver principle is congruent to the very nature. How does that work? I mean, I would be very interested to
Sure.
know a little more on that.
Well, it taps into human nature, okay? Because human nature, so, Dale Carnegie, years ago in his great book, his classic, How to Win Friends
How
and
to win
Influence
friends and
People,
influence people, yes.
one thing he wrote that I believe was the basic premise of his entire book, he wrote, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons.
Absolutely.
What a go-giver does
Mm-hmm.
is they are so focused
Mm-hmm.
on the other person
Mm-hmm.
and what the other person's reasons are,
Mm-hmm.
that they make that their business. When you think about it, what is selling? And people say, oh, it's network marketing direct. You don't have to sell. No, you just share. Well, first of all, selling is sharing. It's a lot of things. But to say you don't have to sell is wrong. It is selling. But let's understand what selling really is. Selling is not something you do to someone. It's something you do with someone or for someone. Selling is not trying to convince somebody to get something or do something they don't want to do. That's being a con artist. No, that's
Absolutely.
not selling.
Because that selling itself is a
Selling,
value add for the person.
exactly. Selling is, I personally define selling as simply discovering what the other person wants, needs, or desires, and helping them to get it. This ties into human nature. Nobody's going to buy from you or do business with you because you need the money. They're not going to do business with you because you need to reach a certain level. They're not going to do business with you because you're a nice person who believes in your product. They're
Absolutely.
going to do business with you because they believe it's more advantageous to them to do so than to not do so. That is human nature. And as soon as we respect that human nature and work within it instead of trying to fight it, that's when we're going to have a real chance to be successful.
Very nice, very nice. Great, great. I get you, absolutely. Bob, if I may ask, we've been talking about your book being so very valuable and so very applicable to the people in the network marketing or the direct selling industry. But I would think that this should apply to people in any business, right? How would you
Mhm.
look at it from your perspective?
Yeah, well, it really does. Because really, when you think of it again, if selling is discovering what the other person wants, needs, or desires and helping them to get it, the same holds true in any business. Business is all about serving people's needs. That's what the free market is about. It's that people want something, and if you're the person who can give it to them in the way they want it, you're going to be rewarded with their patronage, with their money, with their being customers. I mean, that's what it is.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the field is.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is great value. I think it applies to any single person or any single person in any different business. So that's
Thank you.
absolutely very well taken. Well, I really appreciate this. And if our audience would like to get a copy of your book and your other books, what the best way to, get around to getting your book?
Probably just to visit the Go Giver without the hyphen, thegogiver.com. And while they're there, they can scroll down the page. I have a podcast. We have the Go Giver Sales Academy. We have the books. They can get a chapter of the different books to see if they like it first and then click through. So
That's again value, right?
thegogiver.com.
That's again giving value before they even want to put down the money and buy
Yeah,
it.
right.
So that's really walking your talk, so to say.
Well, thank you, Joseph.
Very good,
Thank you.
very good. Bob, it's been a real pleasure having you, and I would be very honest in saying that I really got more value than I myself expected out of this call.
Well, thank
I
you.
do appreciate that. I really do, and I do hope that our audience will, take the points and advice and indications that you've given and really take a lot of benefit out of that because you've given so much. Now it's up to them to take it, apply that, and make good in their own business. It's been a pleasure having you, and I really thank you for that.
The pleasure's mine, Joseph. Thank you.
You have a good day, sir.
You too.